Karen Ruby here for Tech Republic with Sarah Stoddard from Glassdoor. Glad to have you with me, Sarah. We're all working from home, of course, and this has become our reality, talking through Zoom, and it doesn't matter where you are in the world. This has been an adjustment for so many of us, and one of the difficult things is, paying attention to some rules or some rules of thumb when it comes to being in front of a camera like this, especially for a job interview. I mean, this is really changes things up from the traditional way of doing things.
Mhm. It's been a major adjustment for everybody, to say the least. And job interviews are already a little bit tense and stressful. So if you've never done one in a virtual setting, all of the, little things to know might feel overwhelming, but there are some things that you can do to really set yourself up for success to do an interview virtually.
Yeah, and Sarah, some of the things that seem like they should be obvious to people, they really aren't obvious to everyone. Some of the things to remember, because this is such a new thing for so many of us. Let's start first, with the aesthetics and the things that people are seeing, and eye contact and things like that, and then we'll get more into, when you're actually in an interview and some of the things to remember.
So, especially if you're doing this for the first time, like I said, it can feel a little overwhelming. You're not sure where to start. And so, start with the basics. Check your internet connection. That's the first thing, especially if you're doing an interview over Zoom or Google Hangouts. You want to make sure that they can actually hear you and see you clearly. Then you want to make sure that you're comfortable with the video technology. A lot of us have become very familiar with Zoom over the last year, connecting with friends and family while we're all social distancing. But if you haven't used it before, download the software and play around with it. Interviews, there's a lot you're already thinking about, and don't want to be concerned if they can't hear you or they can't see you. You want to choose a spot in your home with good lighting. So sit next to a window or set up some lamps in front of you so that way the interviewer can see you clearly. And minimal distractions is the key. So find a bedroom, a cleared out closet, a living room that has minimal distractions in the background, and let the people know that you live with, that you're doing an interview in that space. To be like, hey, roommate, significant other, family member, I'm doing an interview in the living room from noon to 2. If you could keep the distractions and noise to a minimum, that would be great. Again, so you can recreate a professional experience and environment from your own home.
Yeah, some great advice there, Sarah. And I know you mentioned download, if you haven't worked on Zoom before or Hangouts, that to download it first. Maybe even, I know people that have practiced with friends. Set up a meeting, pretend that they're having a meeting to see how they do. Maybe record it, go back and watch yourself. So when you're sitting across from someone versus through a screen. Talk a little bit about the differences there, what to keep in mind. Do you treat it just like you do an in-person interview?
So, for the most part, yes, you do treat it as if it was an in-person interview, because you want to try to find those moments of connection in your conversation, because that will help you stand out, especially if these people are interviewing potentially dozens of people. So one way to create that more personable connection is to elevate your camera to your eye level. And that can almost recreate having that face-to-face contact with the person on the other side of the Zoom call. And so that's one of the ways that you can sort of create those more personable experiences. In addition to that small talk, finding those moments of commonality. If you've searched the interviewer in advance and you noticed, hey, you went to the same university, you can, have a small conversation about that too. And so find those moments where you can almost recreate meeting them in person, but in a virtual environment.
And I love that you said to make sure you try to prop up the camera, because there's nothing worse than looking up people's noses, or they just don't realize that the and that's again one of those things that this is just not the norm for everyone. So it's some great advice to pass on there. Sarah, it's we're almost a year into this, which is hard to believe, and there's so many changes that we've all been experiencing. And for those that are trying to maybe change careers or just coming out of school and are doing this interview process, this is something that they really need to research and look into before just jumping on a call.
Mhm. This is the part where it most emulates an in-person experience. You want to make sure that you research the company in advance, know what the company does, understand the role that you are actually applying for, do some research online into the people that you're interviewing with, search them up on LinkedIn, again, to find those commonalities. So that way you can ask them custom questions too about their background and how it applies to the role that they're doing now. And then make sure, like I said, ask questions throughout the interview. If there's a question that they ask and you're not sure how to respond, you can ask a clarifying question. And then at the end, typically an interviewer will ask, okay, anything else you want to ask? I would say at least one, if not three questions ready to go, even if you have used them in the past to show you that you're engaged in the conversation. So it can be, what do you love most about working at this company? Or why do you stay in this role? What's the company culture like? Again, to show that genuine interest in the role and the company that you're applying for.
Great advice, Sarah. And one thing too, before we jump off, just because we were talking about it before we started recording this interview, don't forget the thank you notes, right?
Yes, don't forget them. You can have somewhat of a template, especially if you're meeting with several people, but don't copy paste the same message for everybody. They will forward those notes to each other just to say, hey, by the way, I heard from this person, they really stood out to me. You can have somewhat of a template, but customize them a little bit. Call out something from your specific conversation that stood out. Call something out from their experience that you were really impressed by, or a project that they worked on. You're like, wow, I would love to be involved in something like that, just to show that extra little attention to what seems like a small detail. But if those people are interviewing so many people, you want to find those little moments to help yourself stand out from the crowd.
Yeah, absolutely, Sarah. Customizing just takes a little bit more time, but definitely worth it. Again, some great advice for us to pass on here to our viewers and those who are reading our articles here on Tech Republic. So we certainly appreciate you, Sarah, being with us, and of course, we wish all the best to all of you that are out there that are trying to find new jobs or switching careers. And definitely make sure you do your research, right, and look things up before you just jump on a call.
Exactly. Research and preparation are vital when it comes to doing an interview and approaching your job search. So putting that extra time in advance can really help you stand out.
Yep, most definitely. All right. Thanks for being with us, Sarah. And thank you to all of you for watching us here today.